Assalamu alaikum. My name is Charlotte Harrington, and I am from England. If you had asked me years ago where my life would take me, I never could have imagined the profound spiritual transformation that awaited me. The kind that does not announce itself but arrives quietly, the way dawn arrives, until you realize the darkness is already gone. I was raised in a small, well-kept town in the English countryside. My parents were kind and decent people who believed in God the way many people in England do, distantly, politely, without urgency. Faith was a cultural inheritance, not a living fire. We attended church on Christmas and Easter, sang the hymns from memory, bowed our heads at the appropriate moments, and then returned home to our ordinary lives as though nothing particularly significant had occurred. No one spoke of God between Sundays. No one seemed to feel the need to. Yet despite being surrounded by the rituals of faith, the carols, the stained glass, the prayers murmured from beautifully printed pages, a deep, pervasive sense of emptiness lingered in my heart. As a child, I could not name it. It simply lived in me, like an unfurnished room in the house of my soul. I went through the motions because everyone around me did. I wore the right expressions at the right moments. But I always walked out of the church feeling more hollow than when I had entered, as though something essential had been offered, and I had not been given the key to receive it. As I grew older, the questions came, and they came with a force I could not suppress. How could God, the absolute, the eternal, the infinite creator of every star and every breath, take human form? How could the divine be divided? How could the Almighty, the supreme creator of the universe, the one who fashioned the endless skies I loved so much, need a son? I asked these questions in Sunday school. I asked them in confirmation classes. I asked them with sincerity, not rebellion. And the answers I was given, well-meaning, carefully phrased, rehearsed, never touched the wound. They dressed it. They did not heal it. I went to university and studied philosophy, hoping that the greatest minds in human history might give me what the church had not. I read Kant and Kierkegaard, sat in seminars where brilliant people debated the existence of God with cool academic detachment, discovered Sufism through a footnote in a book I had borrowed on a whim. Each door I opened led to another corridor. The hunger inside me grew more articulate with every year, which, in a strange way, made it more painful. I now had the vocabulary to describe what I was missing. I simply had no map to find it. It was during my final year of university that I met Yasmin. She was a postgraduate student, quiet, composed, and possessed of a certainty I found simultaneously strange and deeply magnetic. She wore the hijab, something I had never encountered up close in my life, and she moved through the world with an unhurried dignity that I could not quite name. She was not performing anything. She was not trying to impress or persuade. She simply existed in a state of settledness that I had been searching for my entire adult life without knowing what to call it. We became friends slowly, the way real friendships tend to grow, over shared library hours and long conversations that wandered far from the books in front of us. One evening, she asked me what I believed, not in a challenging tone, with genuine open curiosity, and I told her something that surprised even me as I said it. I believe in God. I just don't know what God believes about me. She smiled, not with pity, not with the eagerness of someone about to hand you a pamphlet, but with quiet recognition. That's exactly where it begins, she said. That exact feeling. It was Yasmin who first invited me to the mosque. Not to convert me, not to lecture me, simply to experience, to let me see what her faith looked like from the inside, rather than from the comfortable distance of the outside world. And I will never forget stepping through those doors for the first time. The hush that greeted me was unlike any silence I had encountered in a church. It was not an empty silence. It was a full silence, weighted with presence, with something invisible and yet absolutely undeniable. I felt, and I know how this sounds, immediately and inexplicably safe. I began to observe the people around me, the women who prayed with complete, unhurried stillness, the men who arrived in their Friday suits and left their concerns outside the door. And as I watched, a thought surfaced, slow at first, then insistent. That would become the central question of everything that followed. Many of these people had been born into this. They had grown up within Islam, surrounded by its rhythms from their very first days of consciousness. And I found myself wondering, with genuine and respectful curiosity, did they understand why? Or had they always simply known how? I could not let go of that question. I began to seek out conversations with born Muslims, with reverts, with scholars and ordinary people alike, and a pattern emerged that struck me with the quiet force of revelation. Born Muslims are raised in this theology, this ideology, this whole beautiful way of life from childhood. They learn the ritual first. They learn how to pray before they fully understand the philosophy of prayer. They learn what to wear, what to do, what not to do, the sacred architecture of daily life, before the deeper reasoning behind each pillar has been fully articulated to them. They learn the how before they necessarily grasp the why. And I want to be absolutely clear, this is not a deficiency. It is a mercy. It is a grace I could never possess, to have been surrounded by the truth from your first breath, to have the name of God woven into the earliest memories you carry, to have grown up already home. But for those of us who come to Islam as reverts, the journey moves in exactly the opposite direction. We seek the knowledge first. We dive, head first and desperately, into the understanding. We learn the wisdom behind the practices before we attempt the practices themselves. We learn why the prayer faces that direction before we learn the words of the prayer. We learn the divine reasoning behind fasting before we observe the first fast. We arrive at the ritual already convinced by the theology, and that conviction transforms the ritual into something almost unbearably sacred. We come to the prayer not because we were taught to pray, but because we understand, bone deep, why bowing before the Creator of the universe is the only honest posture a human being can adopt. It is, as I came to describe it late one evening after Jumu'ah, the same destination reached by a different road. And both roads are beautiful. Both are walked in the mercy of God. I had made a promise, to myself, or perhaps already to God, that I would attend Friday prayer for 3 months without exception. Every single Jumu'ah. Not as an observer, not as a tourist, but as a seeker. I would sit with the discomfort of not yet fully belonging, with the beauty of a language my tongue had not yet learned, with the questions that still moved freely through me, and I would simply be present, committed, open. And it was in that space of steady, patient presence that everything began to shift beneath me, slowly, and then all at once. I remember one Friday evening, after the congregation had dispersed, sitting alone in the women's section with a translation of the Quran in my hands. I had read it before, academically, with a scholar's clinical distance. But this evening, I read it differently. I read it the way Yasmin had once described prayer, with the heart ahead of the mind, letting the words enter before the intellect could interrupt them. And something opened. I came to a verse I had read 10 times before. He is Allah, the one and only. Allah, the eternal, the absolute. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. I sat there weeping, not from sadness, from recognition, from the staggering sensation of finally hearing, in 4 brief lines, the answer to every question I had carried since childhood. I thought to myself, I do not yet know all the words, but I feel, with my entire being, that I understand everything. The realization that dawned on me next arrived not with thunder, but with light. A slow, blazing, undeniable light of truth that illuminated every dark corner of doubt I had ever harbored and left nothing in its wake but immense gratitude. Gratitude so enormous it had nowhere to go but downward, and so I found myself in the only position that made any sense, in prostration, in surrender, in the place my soul had been trying to find its whole life. I took my Shahada on a quiet Thursday morning, several weeks later, surrounded by women who had walked with me through those months of seeking. I remember the Arabic words moving through me, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and feeling for the first time in my life that my voice was carrying something eternally true, not a ritual handed to me by inheritance, a truth I had pursued with everything I had, a truth that had, in its infinite mercy, waited for me. My journey was long and sometimes painful, but every moment of doubt was worth it to finally arrive at the truth of Islam. To anyone who is searching, keep your heart open, listen to the Quran, and never ignore the truth when it stands clearly before you.